Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. Washington is home to a growing number of native Hawaiians, and Polynesian culture and traditions are flourishing in the Northwest. Lei makers are keeping busy in the area, weaving lei for celebrations and milestones. Jeannie Yandel will talk with Seattle Times reporter Megan Ulu-Lani Boyanton about how things are going in the lei business in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. We'll start with a heads up from the Seattle Now team. We're getting some R&R and pressing pause this week on our evening headlines shows. Our evening show returns Monday, December 1st, but we'll have episodes for you each morning this week, including the return of Casual Wednesday, our Thanksgiving-themed show with Rachel Bell and Geraldine DeRuyter. So look for that in the next couple of days, and have a happy Thanksgiving. In other news, Seattle Public Schools is considering a new policy on cell phones at school. It would set different rules for different age groups. Phones would be banned completely in elementary school, put away for the whole day in middle school, and put away during class time in high school. Staff says they're trying to balance student well-being with concerns about an overly rigid policy. District staff say they'll continue gathering feedback from families. They hope to have the new policy in place by next school year. And fewer people have purchased the yearly pass to visit our state parks ever since the price increased last month. Washington State raised the price of a Discover Pass from $30 to $45 in October. It's the first price hike since the program started in 2011. Now, the goal was to raise extra money for parks amid inflation concerns, but the Kitsap Sun reports there was a 23% drop in pass sales in October. Nonetheless, the state was anticipating the drop in sales and is still expecting to bring in more revenue this fall.
You've seen beautiful, fresh flower lei at graduations and retirement parties. Rooted in Polynesian culture, the garlands are gifts presented at important milestones. In the Northwest, the Hawaiian diaspora is growing, in part due to the high cost of living on the islands. Washington State has the third highest population of Native Hawaiians after Hawaii and California. With a growing community, there's demand for traditional lei for important celebrations. And while tariffs on flowers and reduced consumer spending are showing up in the industry, local lei makers are still busy keeping up with orders. Seattle Times business reporter Megan Ulu-Lani Boyanton spoke with lei makers in the area about the growing demand for their craft. Thanks so much for being here, Megan.
Mahalo for having me.
Seattle is home to a growing community of Native Hawaiians. How is that showing up around the region?
Yeah, we have a huge Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiian population here. I am part of it, which is kind of part of the inspiration that I had for writing this story. As you mentioned earlier, we have the third largest number of Native Hawaiians behind Hawaii and California. And that's a diasporic community that's only growing. And so the needs that we have for things that remind us of coming home, those are just growing as well.
When you got the idea for this story initially, what were you hoping to share with readers?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, lei are kind of constantly in the background, I guess, of my life. My ohana are from East Maui on my mom's side. And so I grew up with lei, being presented to me at graduations. And so after coming back to Seattle, I kind of started to try and suss out who would be my go-to lei maker up here, because it's so much easier to get lei in the Seattle area compared to other parts of the country. And so I guess my own journey to try to find lei makers has helped really kind of inspire this particular piece.
Do you remember the first time you were gifted a lei? Like, what was the first significant event in your life where you got a lei as a gift?
Sure. So I think of two. One is just, I think of my high school graduation. Usually when you get a lei from family, they just put it over your head, and it's like a symbol of an accomplishment, of a big milestone. Another one is when I was in New Orleans as a kid, and we sent lei off into the water in honor of Hurricane Katrina. So it's one of those things that you can also do to honor an event and to honor the people that are affected.
Certainly, it sounds like lei are used to celebrate significant events in people's lives, like for your high school graduation. Where else does the significance of lei show up in Polynesian culture?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's an ancient practice for us. It's across different Polynesian cultures, but, Native Hawaiians, we've been making lei for centuries. Sometimes it was our ali'i or our royalty who were wearing them. And then as time went on, our maka'ainana or commoners also wore them kind of as like decorum. But since then, like the meaning of lei, especially in like the last century, has really shifted as a way for us to like show our aloha to others. And so I think that like people in my grandparents' generation will remember that like when planes used to land on Hawaii, people would get off the planes and they'd be greeted with lei. Because lei, although they're Polynesian, they are gifts that we can give to people who aren't necessarily Polynesian either. Lei are gifts for everyone to enjoy. I think that where it gets dicey is when people buy, say, plastic lei from, big box stores or online retailers and use those at Hawaiian-themed parties. But I do think that, like, going to a small business, going to some of these lei makers that I wrote about in this story for the Times, those are definitely, I think, great sources if you want to go and buy a lei to gift.
And I want to talk about some of those local lei makers as well that you profiled in your piece. But first, I want to point out that there are lots of different kinds of lei. You also talk about this in your piece. What different kinds of lei are there?
Oh gosh, so there's a kind of broad range because lei making is really like an art form. My lead source for this story, Tanya Ivalani Jose, she is a lei maker in Federal Way. And while we were interviewing, we were weaving lei together. It was this type called leivili. So we got together and we braid raffia, which is like a beige colored material. I guess like when I think of it, I think of like the outdoor furniture. But we used raffia to kind of braid the base. And then from there you can weave in different plants and flowers. So that's leivili. Lei kui is another one that's kind of like the most common one that you see with the flowers. So that's going to be fresh pua or flowers. So that's where you see like the plumeria or like the orchid. And actually neither of those are native Hawaiian flowers, but they are like widely beloved when it comes to contemporary lei. There's also lei humupapa, that's going to be feather lei. And then beyond that, when you think of kind of modern lei, there are also forever lei, quote unquote, which is what some of the lei makers up here are making. And that's going to be lei made out of ribbon, lei made out of clay, flowers. Really, when you're making lei, the Hawaiian practice is to kind of use what's available to you, what's around you. And so you're really not necessarily limited to flowers when it comes to that.
Well, how are lei sales doing locally?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely an expanding industry. It's more so a cottage industry. So a lot of these lei makers are making lei from their home. For many of them, it's kind of a side gig on top of their full-time careers. But Tanya, the lei maker that I mentioned earlier, this is her full-time job. And she says that business is booming. Of course, there are still some challenges that are arising for them. For instance, the tariffs, kind of competition with big box stores that are trying to get in on lei during graduation, which is when it's kind of most popular to gift a lei. Then there are a few others who are noticing sales slowing on their end, and that's they attribute that to kind of some of the economic crunch that a lot of Americans are seeing right now on their wallet. So really kind of depends on who you ask, but I will say the demand is there for sure.
Mm. Well, I'm curious about these lei makers that you talk to in the community, because you talked to several. Can you share a couple of stories?
Oh, totally. So Tanya, as I mentioned, I think that it's only fair that I round out her story. She runs TJ's Lei Stand in Federal Way. She takes most of her orders through her Instagram or via text, so it's still very like a community-oriented business. Yeah, she actually started this as a way to fill her time when she was recovering from a double mastectomy. So she wanted to keep her hands busy, and after starting it last year, now it's become kind of her full-time business. There's also Kale Okalani Matsui, and she is actually the head of a Polynesian dance troupe that specializes in hula, in Tahitian dance, and in lei making. Oftentimes, when you dance hula, you also need to learn how to make lei that you can wear during performances. So she has actually expanded to offer lei making workshops to people who are not just her students, but are, members of the public here in the Seattle area. So she's been offering lei making workshops at museums and other, city institutions. So that way, Seattleites can learn how to make their own lei.
Oh, cool. Megan, what's the process of making a lei? Is there a ritual to it?
I find it super meditative. It's really easy to reach a flow state, if you will. But it's really something that's supposed to be, again, super community oriented. So it's actually more natural for you to join a lei making class, or, for us Kanaka Maoli to join a group of us and kind of just talk and, joke and laugh while you're making lei together. It's supposed to be a communal thing. And it's also supposed to be something that you do when the vibes are high, when you have good energy. A tip that I have learned from some of the lei makers in my life is that you actually should not make lei if you are in a bad mood, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling sad, because all of the energy while you're weaving lei is going into that lei. And, that lei is supposed to be a gift to someone else, so you don't want to pass that energy on. So you're supposed to do it while you have a clear head, a good mindset, and it's definitely something that can be shared.
So intention really matters when you're making a lei?
100%.
Okay. What are some of the other traditions or beliefs around wearing lei, around making lei, around the significance of this object that you're making?
I count myself as very superstitious, and there's several superstitions, or I guess you could say etiquette around receiving lei, around wearing lei. So I'd love to share a few. One of the kind of starter points is that you usually do not buy lei for yourself. Lei are gifts. They're supposed to be given to other people. And especially when you're making lei, I was told the first lei that you ever make is supposed to be a gift. Also, if you are lucky enough to be offered a lei, you should not say no. You should not refuse a lei if it is given to you. And you're not supposed to take it off in front of the person that gave it to you. Also, you're not necessarily supposed to just throw the lei away in the garbage can. It's something that's supposed to return to the earth. So if you are ready to part with your lei, instead you would cut the string and scatter the flowers in maybe water, or a body of water, the sound, or outside on the ground. Make sure you're not littering. And then I guess the final one that I think is interesting is you would also give occasions to give lei are birthdays, weddings, graduations, engagement parties, pregnancies. You would never give a pregnant woman a closed lei, the traditional closed lei. You give pregnant women open leis. So there's definitely an etiquette to it.
Okay, it's pretty clear from what you've told us that graduation is a time where lei are showing up in Pacific Northwest tradition, culture, perhaps also the holiday season. Where else do you see the lei becoming part of Pacific Northwest traditions?
So one of kind of our cultural touchstones as Hawaiians here in Seattle is the Hawaii General Store, which is a local spot that you can go to buy lei or all of your kind of classic Hawaiian snacks.
That's on 45th Street in Wallingford? Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. And so it's a good place to go, if you need to stock up, because they sell lei year-round that they ship in from Hawaii. If, it's more convenient to go there than to order custom lei from one of the lei makers. I think that it's a really great part of our culture, and I love that it's kind of getting shared. I really, really like seeing these lei makers recognized for the work that they do in carrying on a cultural tradition.
Megan Ulu-Lani Boyanton is the business reporter for the Seattle Times. Megan, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thanks to our generous donors for your support. You can help us out by clicking the link in the show notes and following and rating the show on your podcast app. Today's episode was produced by Jenny Cecil Moore. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, Vaughn Jones, Andy Hurst, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.